I feel like at times, yes, because people really expect us to be very stern, I would say. Very, not uptight, but also very to ourselves, or very bossy is what I've been called a few times about it. So it's just, yeah, just like that. I mainly believe it's about people just not understanding mental health very much. It's getting more of a common topic now, but people still are a little neglective on the fact of mental health. Like, nowadays, anxiety is getting more important than depression. Sure, anxiety leads to depression, but there's more cases nowadays of anxiety than depression. People just don't understand that at the moment, and they take advantage of that fact sometimes. Definitely, but not only immigrant parents. Yeah, sure, they want the best for us, and they, of course, look up to us and just want us to succeed in life, but it's also people telling us that, like, oh, you should know this, Asians are really good at math, and all that other stuff, saying that we should be higher in education from the opposite person. I feel like that's a military thing. I do hear that stereotype or joke around saying, oh, dishonor to your family, but I also haven't really heard that in any other culture, so I think it's just the military that's mainly the issue there. I think it's both. It's, of course, nowadays it's more on the lines of like your parents wanting you to do better in life, but the way they say it and the way they present it to you may sound demeaning, or that they're just going back to their old roots saying, oh, you need to be a doctor, you need to be a lawyer, you need to do this, this, and that to be successful. Like, I experienced that when I went to trade school. I was in the certified nursing program, and I wanted to do graphic designing, but I went into the nursing program to make my parents proud, but it's really not what I wanted to do. Yes, I have. They're doing great now. It's just sometimes they have a little bit of a rocky road, but I do take care of them at times, especially with me having the skills of a certified nursing assistant now. It's much easier, but with family members, it's definitely more mentally depleting because you're slowly watching them, get sicker and sicker with the possibility of them possibly getting better. I would definitely tell them to, of course, do their best, succeed, but I would want them to do tutoring. I don't want them to slack off. I want to push them to reach their best because I know they can do it. I know most people can, unless, of course, the mental doesn't fit right. I would, of course, understand, work around it. If they need to skip a day of school, I would allow that, but I would obviously need their grades up. I wouldn't be so strict to be like, oh, you need to be an all A student. I would be like, okay, if you get 1 C, 2 C's, that's fine. Just please get it up. Yeah, B's are perfect. Yes, of course, because that not only the person themselves are slowly ruining their own mental health with all the constant working and all the stress, that if they happen to have a family with them too, like if they have children, wife, they're taking care of their elderly, they also don't see them a lot, they spend less time with them, and most children, they would of course need some sort of parent figure in their life because that also affects them to making either bad decisions or also forcing things on themselves, causing the same stress as their parent. So usually men in Asian culture are known to be more of the strong, dominant, work every day, work day and night, come home, eat, sleep is what I usually see at least, while the mom is typically stays at home and takes care of the kids and pretty much has the quote-unquote luxury of life because they don't really pay for much. Nowadays, of course, we're trying to change that, but I believe that would be the reason why, is because they feel the stress of having to be the money maker of the household and paying all the bills and groceries and so on and so forth.
I believe so, yes. I feel like my family comes on the more traditional side, so it's not really something that we talk about with each other, and it's deemed as something we keep in the secret, kind of. I would say both mainly. I feel like mental health was deemed, if you were dealing with mental health problems in like history, you were seen as crazy. I feel like that stigma from the past definitely goes along, and people now see mental health as something that makes you weak. So it's probably a mix of both, I would say. I absolutely think that's true because they always say that they come here with the purpose of getting a better life for their children. So they want their children to do the best in their future, and they always tend to think that getting all A's and B's, becoming a doctor, a lawyer is what will get you the best life because it's the life that they couldn't have. So I definitely think that it comes from immigrant Asians coming to here to have a better dream, I guess. I feel like maybe it was a cultural thing. I'm not too sure on the history of that, but I just know that from what I've seen and heard, Japanese people usually tend to carry a lot of honor onto their name and onto their history and bloodline. So it might just be a culture thing. Yeah, I'm not too sure on the details of that. I think it's a mix of both. I feel like it starts with ego just because I feel like a lot of Asians have competition with each other when it comes to their children, I guess. So a lot of them would be like, oh, this is my kid, they're growing up to be a lawyer, what is yours doing? So I feel like a lot of it starts with ego, but then some part of it has to do with they genuinely just want their kid to have the life that they couldn't have. I don't think I've taken care of an older family member just because I feel like my aunts and uncles do that for my grandparents. But I definitely know that they would want the same for us, nieces and nephews. I don't think it affects my mental health in a certain way just because I feel like they've taken so much care of me that I want to give that to them in the future as well. But obviously that could vary just because it could put a lot of pressure on you if, I guess, the way they treat you and expect you to take care of them is bad. So I feel like if they raise you and say in a bad way, I'm only raising you like this because you have to take care of me in the future, I feel like that could affect someone's mental health poorly just because you shouldn't raise your kids solely for the purpose of them to take care of you in the future. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. I think I would start with, it's okay, you don't have to get A's and B's to become successful. Obviously that helps you with getting better education, like getting in certain schools, but I don't think those grades define you as a person, and I don't want to push that onto them because if they don't want to become a lawyer or a doctor, that's completely fine with me. That's not something I want to push onto them and make them feel as if they're pressured and they have to do it because it's what makes me happy. I think so. I feel like when it comes to Asian culture, like I said earlier, mental health isn't really talked about, so people do things like exercising or anything that overexerts themselves too much because I don't feel like they could talk about it. So I think it does affect their mental health and has sorry, I just blinked. It does affect them, I believe so, yeah. I'm not too sure. I feel like maybe it's because at that age, maybe they feel as if there's no one that could take care of them or help them out. I'm not too sure why, but something we could do to address it maybe is have, I don't know, I'm not too sure, maybe have older people do assessments based on their mental health. I'm not too sure. It's not really talked about, but also I feel like older people don't like to talk about their mental health regardless. So I'm not too sure about that question, I'm sorry.
Okay, I guess I'll go first. Well, we are very Americanized, so I'd say no. I think it's 100% ego. I think just Asians in general, it's something about the culture where you have to keep appearance up. Like something about keeping your appearance up is
like you want
really
a good
stressed.
reputation. I was gonna also say just tradition. I feel like it's been like that for years. For sure. Me personally, our family isn't that hard on us. I feel like it's more like just do your best because again, we're very like American Asians, you know what I mean? We're very Americanized. But I think for other people, like from friends I've heard of, yeah, it's usually like the immigrant mindset where it's like, oh, we brought you here, so now you have to do your part and like do better.
I agree. Honestly, I don't really have that much to say about that, only because as you say the questions out loud, they kind of like go from one ear to the other. I have a hard time understanding the question when it's said out loud. Definitely cultural. Japanese people place a huge emphasis on honor.
Yeah. Another thing of that too, I'm surprised about not Korea doing that, so I wonder if it does partially have to do with their military. Like I'm not sure how the Japanese military works, but I do remember hearing that like Japan and Korea have like some of the highest suicide rates in general. So it kind of like makes sense. It's not a good thing, but it kind of does make sense that like that would be Japan who's doing that. But I think, like she said, it has to do a lot with just honor in their culture.
I think it can be both, because in my circumstances, I did say I'm very Americanized, but it is my Vietnamese mom that influenced me to go into healthcare. She's a nurse herself, but I think her reasoning for for her wanting me to be a nurse was so that I could be independent and not have to rely on like my future partner. But I think a lot of other families still base it on like you're keeping up like a good appearance. Like it really does look good to be a doctor, a nurse.
I agree. I think it's exactly what she said, half and half. It's like, it depends what family you ask. Because a lot of them they kind of do want to brag to their friends. Like some older Asians will want to brag to their friends and family and be like, oh, my child's going to be a doctor, my child's going to be a lawyer. But then there are some who are just like, they want a good future for their child. No.
We haven't, just because our grandparents are actually still pretty young. Like they're really dependent on like themselves. I'm not sure if our family would work that way, but because I am in healthcare, I could see myself doing it. So I don't know if it'd be their decision to want to have me care for them or if it's like my influence on them. I'm not sure.
Yeah. We haven't in the past though, so.
Yes.
Oh my god. I don't think I could survive in their education system, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, I would absolutely want to go into some sort of trade.
Well, me personally, I think you're really influenced, obviously, by the family that raises you. And since our family wasn't really pressuring us to do things like that, like not the typical Asian mindset, I would just probably use what they did on me and just try to have my children do the best they can, but I wouldn't like force them to do anything.
I think the same way, because being someone who's kind of coerced into nursing, I think I'm really focused on wanting my children to do what they want. So like instead of focusing on getting the best paying career, I definitely want them to do something that they love so it doesn't feel like a job. Yeah,
for sure.
100%.
I think that's one of the biggest things too for them. It's like the societal pressures, like they don't have the good work-life balance that, I mean, like not everyone has that in America, but it's a little more balanced here, I would say. But again, that goes back into the thing I was saying earlier, where I'm pretty sure they were saying like somewhere online I saw that like Japan and Korea had the highest suicide rates, and I think a lot of that does have to do with their work-life balance. It's mostly work, mostly stress. That's really interesting because I didn't know that, and I wonder if that's just because like maybe they don't want to be a burden on their family, like later on when you're not so like you can't take care of yourself as much, maybe they just feel like they're a burden.
I don't agree with that.
I didn't know that.
I don't know if my idea is like a little bit sillier, but I just kind of thought as you age and as you look a lot different than when you did when you were younger, I thought maybe that was a thing too, where you still like want to keep up some sort of appearance, but it's really hard to when you start getting older. I think I like her.
You're better.
I don't think it's that bad. I suppose the only thing that's like irrelevant is that I feel like rather than being encouraged to speak about my emotions, more like just overcome them is a thing, which sometimes is not really realistic for some people, but like that's the only thing I can think of. I'm not sure if that's how much that's related to culture as opposed to like my parents' philosophy on teaching. I suppose it's like culture though. I think it actually comes from almost like a overachieving perspective, where like you're encouraged to be the best that you can, which is like in a way, because the way mental health is perceived as like less than best, it's like frowned upon in a way to be like, oh, you have that condition, so you're supposed to overcome it and be better than it, which doesn't actually pan out sometimes for some people, because it just relates to people repressing it instead of speaking out about it. Whereas like they convince themselves they don't have a problem, where they're actually just mitigating it as best as they can, and for some people it doesn't work, for some it does work. So people with like minor issues don't know that they have issues in the first place because they repress them almost. But like when they're bigger problems, they end up feeling like they're terrible and they should work harder to fix it, but that just leads to the downward spiral. I could see that definitely being a factor. I just know that my parents always encouraged me to have high grades for the future, which is somewhat related to the exam thing, but I think it's interesting for like at least my generation. My parents are like younger, when they came over. For me specifically, so they wouldn't know as much about everything about the schooling systems in that region. I feel, which is they push for high grades for like a better future is a thing, but like that's what. Sorry. They push for high grades and expecting a good future, which I suppose the exam system could relate to. But it's less of, it's because of that system. It's more like they think the good grade is more important than actually like everything else half the time. Because once you get a good future, you got a good future. You got good money, you got half money. It's like, that's a done deal. I guess it's similar to the exam in that way, where after you succeed in the exam, you get like, that's how well you're doing in your life, or like what job you have. I can see that being similar, but like I'm not entirely sure how it correlates, honestly. I think it's part of both in a way, because I feel like if a country were to like, if they really find military like strength as something really valuable to the culture, then it kind of bleeds into the culture, whereas like the whole country is like, because your worth in the military setting is based off of like the culture in a way where like if you're like revered as like, if you're in the military you're revered and that's your honor almost in a way, it kind of bleeds back into the culture, where that's like, it's a little bit of both. It's like a back and forth, where it's like the concept of honor being so important can bleed into the military, how it functions, which then bleeds back into like how it, to like the culture, where it's like your military honor is part of the culture in a way, if that makes sense. What parents like to do is that in a way, they sometimes brag about it, but it's more of that they want their children to do well, as opposed to actually being like, we should brag about we successfully raised a child. It's more like they want the child to do well, and they assume that the best way to do that is to have them in a well-paying job, because after that is when they can do whatever they want, except for the fact that it takes so much effort to do get into like pharmacies and stuff like that, lawyers, that it feels like the children are restricted until that point, but at that point they don't really know how to reach out in a way. In some of it's ego. I think most of it is just genuine care, just that it gets mixed up with like, here's what the right thing to do is, and it kind of like reinforces itself, where it's like, because everyone else in the like family is like, there's a cousin that's a pharmacist, there's someone else that's a pharmacist or a lawyer, they're doing so good. It's like reinforcing the standard of this is what's the best, even if it's not actually the best. In some ways I've taken care of them, but like not majorly. Typically my parents do that. In some ways I'll have to take care of my grandparents every once in a while, but typically they're healthy enough that I don't have to worry about it that too badly. I don't think it's affected me significantly. I think for me specifically, I'm been fine with it. Nothing major has been put on my plate with them. I think it's more balanced if you have like more like little victories over time. I feel like, because that's like, it's better to measure growth, I feel. That's just like my opinion. I don't know if that's affected by how I've been taught growing up, because the way the school system currently works is like there's a bunch of little quizzes here and there all the time. It just might be my experience growing up in America as opposed to what I know. I think that's better for growth, as in you get little benchmarks every time, so you can kind of like correct your course if you're ever wrong. But that's just my opinion, because I've lived in America, I've grown up in their educational system, so. I think that's an interesting case where if I were to, this actually depends on how much free time I have, because I feel like in order to stem that, you have to figure out what each child, if you were to have a child, like multiple children, or like one child, 1 to 3 children, something like that, you have to know what they want, because while education is generally considered good, if you like know a lot about your child, then you can kind of feel like, this one wants to pursue more of this. You can encourage it, like push them towards it without like sacrificing other stuff. But you have to know exactly what they're looking for, instead of just being like, have them have the best education and then they can worry about everything else. You have to know what the child wants, so you can specifically push them in a direction, even if it's not entirely educational. Like if they want to be an artist, they want to do a sport or something, you have to be able to be observant enough to be like, oh, you can push them in this direction, and because the way it works, they'll probably want to do better in grades, because I know for sports, you have to do better in the schooling system, or at the very least, push them in a way that they can do what they want while in the education, I feel like. Not necessarily like, that's how you like mitigate it in a way where it is true where you still need to have education, but if they have something else that's interesting in them, they need to be pushed in that direction so they can actually pursue it once they have the room to, instead of being forced to just go education all the time, like without just study all the time. They have to have something else to like get as a break, even if it's still work in a way. Part of what I feel is what causes suicide is typically a feeling of like helplessness, or there's no joy in their life, and that would be better if they were gone. So typically either something like that would give them room to breathe, typically by less work overall, would like, or just a better mood, something to look forward to, would help them feel better, which I think less work would probably help mitigate, because I feel like most people would be burnt out by 16-hour work shifts along with 8 hours of sleep, because then they're just tired, exhausted. They have like, they're not able to think as sharply, and this can affect their work performance, which ends up spiraling, I feel, because then they spend all their energy trying to do well at their job that they're just exhausted on. Men over 85, I'm not entirely sure. I feel like that could be something to do with how, like, at least for my family, you're encouraged to support your family, especially as a like male. I feel like you're pushed to be like the one to support your family. So I feel like as you get older and you have to like rely on people more, it's like not as, you don't feel as well doing that because it's not something you grew up doing. It's like changing your worldview, like your entire ideal that you grew up on. As you get older, I think that would be something that people would struggle with. So I think part of it might just be like, if they relax expectations almost to help it ease into that, or something, or either take care of your physical health. So when you're older, you need to rely less on people, so your decline as you get older is slowed. That's the only thing I can think of, but I'm not entirely sure how to answer this one, to be honest.